second year. Talked about running backs. Let's start with Tyjae Spears, who was the RB34 last year as a rookie. Played decent with Derrick Henry, but a lot of people are expecting him to take over a major role here in this offense. He had 453 yards on the ground last year, 385 in the air. Obviously, and had 3 touchdowns last season. So he played decent in a complimentary role, but there were some games where we saw him and he looked like he could be the real deal. Runs very hard, can finish off games. So we like what Tyjae Spears brings. Just they also added Tony Pollard, who I'll talk about here in a second. But 4 out of the last 6 games we saw Tyjae Spears on the field, he had double-digit performances in PPR leagues. So obviously the upside is there for him to be a weekly contributor to our lineups, and he's going outside of the top 30 running backs right now. There could be some value for Tyjae Spears. Just don't reach on him thinking he's the RB1 for this team. Let him prove that to you and take him at the right draft spot. And then also Tony Pollard. I think Tony Pollard, man, last year in Dallas, the minute he got the starting gig, it was like, oh shit, Tony Pollard, top 5 running back. We got to put him in the upper echelon. And when you look at the frame, he just wasn't built like that. He's not built to be a feature back. And I think the Titans signing him to kind of complement what Tyjae Spears does, it was a really good indication that they're going to look to put Tony Pollard in good situations. This to me feels like a 1A, 1B situation where it flips at times, right? Sometimes we'll get Tyjae Spears as the one. Sometimes we'll get Tony Pollard as the one, depending on the game script. But even in a kind of a down season, I would say, for Tony Pollard, he finishes the RB14. The RB14, which is, as a top 15 back for a player who, was the RB8 even the year before that. I see there's a lot of value when we can get Tony Pollard outside of the top 20 running backs. So he had 1,000 yards last year, 6 touchdowns, 55 catches, 311 yards in the air. So, and that was as Dallas' starter with really no running backs. Dealt with getting nicked up at times, and obviously was a little slow on the start coming off that broken fibula the season before that. I think Tony Pollard could surprise people in fantasy. Now, it all depends on where things shake out ADP-wise, but I think the one thing is he's back in the complimentary role. And we saw with Dallas, it was like it's almost better when you give Tony Pollard less work, less reliability, because his body stays fresh for those explosive plays. And then you can use Tyjae Spears a little bit more between the tackles or a little bit more as the bruiser. I think Tony Pollard's in for a really good season, especially if Will Levis can hit some checkdowns, get the ball out in space to the running back, and make some easy completions, all right? So Meek Callahan came from Cincinnati, where we saw Joe Mixon play well. We have, Nick Holtz come from Jacksonville, where we saw Travis Etienne. I think these running backs are going to be using. Tony Pollard kind of fits like that Travis Etienne type mold. So I don't think he gets the same type of volume, and I do think this is a dual back situation. But Tony Pollard, it wouldn't surprise me to see him in the top 15, top 20 running backs this year on a pretty comfortably.